He came home early. She was still in the shower. And the badge fell out of her bag before he could pretend he hadn't seen it. Kang Jae-won doesn't scream. He doesn't flip tables. He just sits down in the dark and waits, and somehow that is so much worse. If you think you know how this ends, you haven't met these two yet. He found the badge on a Tuesday. Not because he was looking. Not because his instincts finally caught up with what his heart had been refusing to accept for weeks. He found it because he came home early, because a meeting fell apart, because for the first time in 11 years of running the most feared criminal organization in Seoul's underground, Kang Jae-won had somewhere he actually wanted to be. He wanted to come home to her. That was the part that would destroy him later, not the betrayal, not the badge, not the folded evidence report with his name printed at the top in clean government font. What would destroy him was the memory of standing in the elevator, loosening his tie, almost smiling at the thought of her in the kitchen with that music she always played. The way she sang when she thought no one was listening. The way she looked at him sometimes like he was a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. He had been falling. He knew it. He just thought he had more time before it killed him. Her name was Amara Cole, 29 years old. Third-generation law enforcement. The daughter of a retired detective and a woman who believed in justice the way some people believe in God, without question, without apology, without room for doubt. She had her mother's eyes and her father's nerve and a laugh that could make a room feel like somewhere worth staying. She had also been sent by the Seoul Metropolitan Police Department's Special Crimes Division to dismantle everything Jae-won had spent his life building. She had been his wife for 63 days when he found out. He wasn't supposed to come home until 9. The meeting with the Busan distributors was supposed to run until 8 at least, and then there was the debrief with Park Sung, his right hand, the man who had been quietly suspicious of Amara since the 3rd week of the marriage and had never once stopped saying so. Jae-won had dismissed it every time. Called it paranoia. Called it the kind of narrow thinking that made Park Sung useful but not irreplaceable. He would have to live with that too. The meeting collapsed at 6:45 when one of the Busan men showed up drunk and started making threats that nobody in the room had patience for. Jae-won stood up, straightened his jacket, said 4 words, and walked out. His driver had him back at the penthouse by 7:15. The lobby was quiet. The elevator hummed. He stood with his hands in his pockets and thought about her. They had gone on a date 3 weeks ago. He still couldn't explain why he'd done it. He had told himself it was necessary, maintaining appearances, reinforcing the cover story, making their arrangement look believable to anyone who might be watching. He had told himself that right up until the moment he saw her walk out of the bedroom in that burgundy dress, gold hoops catching the light, her hair loose around her face, and he had completely forgotten what he'd told himself. He had taken her to the rooftop at Lucille. Private table. City below them like a spilled jewelry box. She had looked at the view and then looked at him and said, "You didn't have to do all this," and he had said, "I know," and that was the moment something shifted that he couldn't shift back. They had talked for 3 hours. Real talking, the kind he hadn't done with anyone in so long he'd almost forgotten what it felt like. She told him about growing up in Atlanta, about her grandmother's cooking, about the first time she felt the particular exhaustion of being underestimated. He told her about Busan, about his father's fish market, about the version of himself that had existed before the version everyone feared. She had listened like what he was saying mattered. Like he mattered. Not the organization, not the power, not the name. After dinner, they walked along the Han River. She took her heels off and carried them. He gave her his jacket, and she pulled it around herself and looked up at him, and the city lights caught her face, and he thought, with the specific clarity of a man who has survived by reading situations correctly, that he was in serious trouble. He hadn't kissed her that night. He had wanted to. He had stood close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him, and her lips had parted slightly, and he had looked at her for a long moment, and then stepped back because something told him that if he kissed her, everything would change. And he wasn't ready for everything to change. He was ready now. He stepped off the elevator. Before you find out what happens next, if you're new here, this is the channel where love doesn't play it safe. Subscribe right now, because this story is going to make you choose a side, and you need to be here when everything falls apart. The penthouse was quiet in that particular way it got when she was in the shower. He knew her routines by now. Knew the music she turned on when she was winding down. Knew the exact way the apartment felt different when she was in it versus when he was alone. He had stopped pretending that distinction didn't matter to him. Her bag was on the armchair near the entryway. That soft leather tote she carried everywhere, the one with the fraying strap she refused to replace because, she said, her grandmother had given her the bag and fraying straps build character. He picked it up to move it to the console table. Something slid out. He caught it automatically. A small notebook, black cover, the kind that looked ordinary until you noticed the seal pressed into the bottom corner, small, official, the kind of seal that meant the notebook had been issued rather than bought. He looked at it for 3 full seconds without breathing. Then he set it down and looked into the bag. The wire log was folded into thirds. His name appeared in the first line of the first page. Below it, dates, times, locations. A 3-month surveillance schedule with check-in protocols and a handler's contact code. Below the wire log, a badge. Seoul Metropolitan Police Department. Special Crimes Division. The photo was hers. The name was hers. The title read Detective First Class. He stood in his own living room holding his wife's badge and felt the floor disappear. He was not a man who fell apart. He had built himself specifically to be the kind of man who did not fall apart, who processed information cleanly, who made decisions from a place of cold calculation, who never let emotion occupy the same space as judgment. He had watched men destroyed by feeling things too much. He had promised himself at 17 years old, standing at his father's grave with nothing in his pockets and nowhere to go, that no one would ever have that kind of access to him. He put the badge back. Put the wire log back. Put the notebook back. He moved the bag to the console table, exactly where she would have put it. Then he walked to the armchair facing the hallway and sat down in the dark and waited. The shower ran for another 4 minutes. He counted. He sat with his hands resting on his knees and his face completely still, and he counted every second, and somewhere underneath the stillness something was cracking open that he did not have words for and did not want to look at directly. He heard the water stop. He heard her moving. The soft sound of her humming something low and sweet. That habit she had, music even without music, sound filling whatever space she was in, like she couldn't tolerate silence. He had teased her about it once. She had thrown a dish towel at him, and he had caught it and laughed, actually laughed, the kind that comes from somewhere real, and she had looked at him with this expression like she was surprised and pleased and trying not to show either. He had replayed that moment more times than he would ever admit. The bathroom door opened. She came out in her robe, towel turbaned around her hair, completely at ease, completely unguarded in the way she only was in the apartment, the way that had taken about 2 weeks to appear and had been doing something to his chest ever since. She looked up. She saw him. She stopped. He watched her read the room in real time, the dark, his stillness, the position of her bag. Watched her face move through confusion, and then recognition, and then something that looked like the specific terror of a person watching something they love begin to collapse. Jae-won. How long? His voice was quiet. That was the thing about him that people always misunderstood. He was loudest when he said the least. The quiet was never calm. The quiet was everything contained so tightly it had nowhere to go. She stepped forward slowly. Please. How long, Amara? She stopped. Her hands were at her sides. Her chin lifted slightly, that reflex she had, the one that looked like defiance, but he had come to understand was actually the way she held herself together when something was threatening to break her. Since before the wedding, she said. Her voice was steady. He almost wished it wasn't. I was placed by Special Crimes. The assignment was 3 months. Gather evidence, establish contact with your inner circle, document the distribution network. She paused. That was the assignment. And now I don't know what it is. The silence stretched. Outside, 30 floors below, the city moved in total indifference. You sat across from me at dinner, he said. Still quiet. Still. You walked with me by the river. You let me put my jacket on your shoulders and you looked at me like, he stopped. Like what? She whispered. He looked away from her. Toward the window. toward the city that had never once asked him how he was doing. Like I was something worth looking at, he said. Amara made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Was any of it real, he said. Not a question. The statement of a man who already knew the answer and needed to hear it said out loud anyway, needed the confirmation the way you need to press on a bruise even when you already know it hurts. All of it, she said. Every single part of it was real. Her voice cracked on the last word, and she pressed her lips together, and he heard her breathe. The dinner was real. The river was real. Every conversation, she stopped. Started again. I tried not to feel it. I tried for weeks. I filed incomplete reports. I pushed back check-ins. I told myself I was being professional when I was actually being dishonest, he said. The word landed. She didn't flinch. Yes. He turned back to look at her. She was standing in the middle of the living room in her robe with her towel still around her hair, and her eyes were bright, and she was looking at him with the kind of directness that had made him trust her in the first place, and something about that. About the fact that she could look at him like that right now, made it worse rather than better. My father ran fish through Busan port for 30 years, he said. He never once cheated anyone. He never shorted a scale, never bribed an official, never made a deal that wasn't clean. He died with nothing, and he died honest. He paused. I made different choices. I've made peace with that. I don't expect people to see me as something I'm not. He met her eyes. But I expected you to tell me who you were. You would have had me removed, she said. Yes. Or worse. Yes. Then you understand why I couldn't. Understanding why doesn't change what it is. She crossed the room. Slowly, like she was approaching something that might bolt or shatter. She stopped 2 feet from him and looked up at his face, and he made himself look back at her because looking away felt like the coward's choice, and he had never been a coward. What do you want to do? She asked quietly. He looked at her for a long time. I want to go back to 3 weeks ago, he said. I want to be standing on that riverbank and know what I know now and make a different choice. What choice? I don't know. That's the problem. She reached out. Her hand touched his forearm lightly, not grabbing, not holding, just touching, the way you reach toward something to see if it's still warm. He looked down at her hand. He didn't move away. Jae-won, she said softly. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what my job is. I know what my captain is expecting. Her thumb moved slightly against his sleeve. But I've been sitting with this for weeks and I can't make myself be okay with it. With burning this down. With burning you down. You should, he said. What I run is not something that deserves protection. I'm not talking about what you run. The room was very quiet. He reached up and covered her hand with his. Just for a moment. Just long enough for something to pass between them that neither of them had language for. Then he stepped back. Go to bed, he said. We'll figure out what comes next in the morning. And if there is no good version of what comes next? He picked up his jacket from the back of the armchair. Moved toward the hallway. Then we'll build one, he said, without turning around. We're both good at working with nothing. Okay, pause. Whose side are you on right now? Are you Team Amara or Team Jae-won? Drop it in the comments because this thread is about to get heated, and I need to know where you stand before the next episode destroys you. He didn't sleep. He sat in the study until 2 in the morning with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink and his phone face down on the desk and the city spreading out below him like it always did, indifferent and glittering, asking nothing of him. Park Sung had been right. He had been right for 3 weeks, patient and steady and professional about it, and Jae-won had looked him in the face and told him to let it go. He picked up his phone. Put it back down. There were exactly 3 calls he could make right now. One to Park Sung, which would set in motion a process he couldn't stop once it started. One to his lawyer, which was the clinical choice, the smart choice, the choice that protected the organization. One to his contact at the Port Authority, which was the nuclear option, disappear the problem entirely, clean slate, no evidence, no detective, no Amara Cole. He looked at the phone. He thought about her hand on his arm. The way she had looked at him in the dark. The specific texture of her voice when it cracked on the word real. He left the phone on the desk. In the bedroom, Amara was not sleeping either. She was sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in her hand and her captain's number on the screen and her thumb hovering over the call button. Captain Lim had texted twice already. Asterisk status update. Check-in required by 2100. Asterisk then. Asterisk Cole. I need confirmation you're operational. Asterisk. She stared at the screen. She thought about the evidence in her bag. 3 months of documentation, clean and thorough, the kind of case file that would end careers and close operations and put Kang Jae-won in a room he would never come home from. She thought about the fish market in Busan. About the way he'd talked about his father, not with pride, not with shame, but with the complicated tenderness of someone carrying a story they've never told anyone before. She thought about the jacket on her shoulders by the river. She put the phone face down on the nightstand. She lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling and thought, I am so far off the map that I don't even know what direction home is anymore. In the morning, he made coffee. 2 cups, without being asked, the way he always did, hers with oat milk, his black, set on the counter at whatever time she usually appeared. She came out of the bedroom at 7:43 to find the cup waiting and him already by the window in a fresh suit, phone to his ear, speaking quietly in Korean. He glanced at her when she entered. Something passed across his face. She wrapped both hands around the cup and waited. He ended the call. Turned to face her. Park Sung knows, he said. She went still. He's known for a week. He came to me with it yesterday morning, before the Busan meeting. He watched her process this. I told him he was wrong. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Because I wasn't ready to know he was right. She set the cup down. What does Park Sung want to do? What Park Sung always wants to do. His voice was even. Remove the problem. The word remove sat between them like something with weight. And you? She asked. He crossed the kitchen. Stopped on the other side of the counter from her. Close enough that she could see the particular expression he got when he was making a decision that he knew would cost him, that specific compression of the jaw, the steadiness in his eyes that wasn't coldness, she understood now, but control. I told him to stand down, Jae-won said. For now. For now, she repeated. He'll give me 48 hours before he escalates to the council. He held her gaze. Which means you have 48 hours to make a decision. What decision? Whether you burn this down or whether you walk away from it. She breathed. Those are the only 2 options? In Park Sung's world, yes. What about in yours? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached across the counter and picked up her cup and handed it back to her, a gesture so ordinary and so intimate in its ordinariness that she felt it somewhere deep and undefended. I'm still working on that, he said. She took the cup. Their fingers didn't touch this time. She noticed that he noticed. I have to call my captain, she said quietly. I know. If I don't check in, they'll come here. I know that too. Jae-won. She waited until he looked at her. I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, what happened between us, that's not the job. That was never the job. The job was supposed to be clean and it stopped being clean somewhere around the 3rd week when you laughed at something I said, and I realized I was actually waiting for that every day. Waiting for that specific thing. She stopped. Her voice had gone unsteady and she let it. I'm not going to pretend that a way to make this easier. He was very still. It doesn't make it easier, he said. No, she agreed. It doesn't. It makes it considerably harder. Yes. Which is probably the most honest thing either of us has said in this apartment. She almost smiled. He almost smiled back. The almostness of it was its own kind of heartbreak. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. Something shifted in his face. I have to take this, he said. She nodded. He moved toward the study. Then he stopped. Without turning around, he said, the evidence in your bag. The wire logs. A pause. How complete is it? She was quiet for a moment. Complete enough, she said. He nodded once. Walked into the study and closed the door. She stood in the kitchen with her coffee going cold and her captain's texts unanswered and the evidence bag sitting on the console table by the door, and she understood with sudden, terrible clarity that she was standing at the exact center of a choice that was going to define the rest of her life. Whatever she decided in the next 48 hours, something was going to die. The question was what she could live without. She picked up her phone. Opened the text thread with her captain. Typed, asterisk operational. Will contact at 1800, asterisk. Then she opened a different thread. Her best friend Kezia, who had been checking in with increasing urgency for 2 weeks, who had said, Amara, I know that voice. That is not your professional voice. That is your I am doing something I can't come back from voice. She typed, I think I'm in love with him. 3 seconds. Then Kezia, Amara Cole. Then, asterisk I knew it. I called it. You owe me so much, asterisk. Then, also, what are you going to do? She stared at the question. Put her phone face down. Looked at the study door. She was going to do what she'd never done in 10 years of law enforcement. She was going to make a decision with her whole self instead of just her job title. She was going to be terrified about it, and she was going to do it anyway. She walked to the study door. Knocked once. Come in. She opened the door. He was standing at the window again, phone lowered, looking out at the morning city. He turned when she entered. I need to tell you something, she said. Tell me. I'm not going to file the evidence. The room was very quiet. Amara. I'm not finished. She held his gaze. I'm not filing the evidence because I believe the case against you is real and serious, and I know what it would do, and I am choosing, fully and with open eyes, not to do it. Not because you pressured me. Not because I'm scared. Because I've spent 10 years following the rules and I believe in those rules, and I also believe, her voice steadied. I believe in you. I don't know what that costs me yet. I know it's going to cost something. He crossed the room. Stopped directly in front of her. Do you understand what you're doing? He said. Yes. You'll lose your badge. I know. Your career. Your record. Everything you built. I know, Jae-won. He looked at her, really looked at her, the way he had on the riverbank, the way that stripped away all the careful distance and left just the two of them standing in the truth of what was actually happening between them. I'm not worth that, he said quietly. That's not your decision to make. Something moved through his expression that she had never seen there before. Something open and unguarded and almost young. He reached up and touched her face. His hand was warm. His thumb traced her cheekbone and she leaned into it, just slightly, and he exhaled like something in him had been held tight for a very long time. I need you to understand something, he said. Tell me. If you stay, if you do this, I will spend whatever time I have left making sure it was worth it. Every day. Not because I owe you. Because you are, he stopped. His jaw worked. You are the first person I have wanted to come home to in my entire adult life. And I will not be careless with that. Her eyes were full. She didn't blink. Okay, she said. Okay, okay. She covered his hand with hers, pressed it against her cheek. Then we figure out the rest. Together. Together. He lowered his forehead to hers. They stood like that in the morning light of the study, the city sprawling below them, the next 48 hours waiting like a held breath. And for one suspended moment, neither of them was a mafia boss or an undercover detective or a person carrying the weight of an impossible choice. They were just two people standing in something real. Then his phone rang again. He pulled back, looked at the screen. Park Sung. His eyes met hers. The 48 hours just started, he said. She straightened. Her jaw set. Her father's nerve, her mother's faith. Then we'd better move fast, she said. He answered the phone. Everything was about to change. If you've made it this far without picking a side, you haven't been paying attention. Drop a comment right now. Are you Team Jae-won, Team Amara, or Team Burn the whole city down together? And if this story has been living in your chest since episode 1, hit subscribe. Hit the like button. Because the next episode is the one that changes everything, and you do not want to find out what happens from someone else's comment section. Be here. Stay close. This story is just getting started.